When reviewing games, I generally try not to compare them with others, so I'm choosing to get the obligatory comparisons out up front. In December 2008, a party-based action RPG was released by BioWare, upon which mine and many others gamers' interests in RPGs were created. This was of course the well-known Baldur's Gate. This game was well received by the majority of PC outlets and was praised for, among other things, a great story, a great cast of characters, and an interesting use of Dungeons and Dragons set of rules in its combat. It's a game that defied expectations and created an experience that many have grown with and continue to reflect upon as a time when the industry was full of creativity and a desire to innovate. Now, over the years, with the general shift in RPG style and gameplay, some older gamers sometimes feel like the better days of gaming were left behind in this time period. The more dramatic ones believe that if we just dropped all the focus on graphics and shiny things and went back to the old school, everything would be much better. Now, normally we don't get the chance to test this theory, seeing as most developers choose to play it safe and stick to the established way things work in today's industry. However, the fellows over at Obsidian Entertainment decided to do the opposite and release a game built in the style of the old school RPG, with presentation and mechanics very similar to those of games like Baldur's Gate. Now, I commend these guys for even trying this in 2015. The Infinity Engine games haven't been in style for a really long time, and even though many of us did enjoy these games, nostalgia value can only hold a player for so long before the actual product you have in front of you must speak for itself. Now, I think that's all the talk of old school that I'll be doing in this video. For the review, we'll be judging the game Pillars of Eternity based on how it stands on its own as a game released in 2015.
Oathbinder, bear witness, and see this man has kept his word, true to his last breath, full to his blood's last drop. Guide his soul, queen that was, and regard it among your favored. Let his life by the key be his confession. Let his death by the key.
Pillars of Eternity is set in the fictional world of Eora, specifically in an area called the Direwood. The world has a Middle Age setting mixed in with some Renaissance-style elements, so think swords and magic mixed in with the rare rifle and mad scientist contraption. The main quest of the game focuses on two plot threads. The first is the player-created character's personal quest. This character, who arrives in the Direwood from a foreign region, finds themselves the survivor of an incident that turns them into a Watcher. A Watcher is one who is able to see the past lives of people's souls, a great power that also unfortunately nearly always drives the bearer to madness eventually. The main character must therefore locate the source of this power and find a way to deal with it. The second plot involves the Legacy, a condition affecting the people of the Direwood and leading to birth of children without souls. The player must investigate this and of course influence how it will all play out. These two plot lines are your license to visit the various areas within the game, meet characters, and engage in many of the smaller stories within the world. And in my opinion, it is these smaller stories that are the true stars of the game. It doesn't take long to see that a lot of thought was put into the many side quests and characters. These smaller tales not only engross you further into the setting, but allow you to get the opinions and perspectives of various people affecting the big events. It's easier to care about the plight of the hollowborn children after you've encountered the stories of a mother desperately trying to prevent her unborn child from facing this doomed fate, and a healer forced to come up with a cure by a frustrated ruler who must come up with something believable to save her own life, despite having no belief that the condition can actually be cured. More importantly, nearly all the quests in the game are open-ended. By this, I mean your decisions will determine how the quest plays out and ends. Better still, all the major quest decisions you make throughout the game contribute and lead to one of a multitude of endings. This in essence means your story is yours to tell. While the overarching narrative beats are defined, the outcomes of adventures and fates of many characters will be determined by your actions. You could be a benevolent guardian looking for just and moral solutions to every problem, or you could play cold and detached, focusing solely on your own objectives. The game also provides a number of companions for the player to meet and party up with. Each of these comes with a backstory, and personal optional objectives to complete. They also have varying opinions that they occasionally share with the player about various events. These companions, however, are not forced on you, as the game allows you to simply hire your own companions from inns. These can be designed and fitted however you wish and offer a great chance to have whichever combination of classes you want in your party. The trade-off, however, is they offer nothing in the way of dialogue or story. All in all, what I think of the story is this. The main quest is good, not great. It gets you across the game well enough. The side quests, however, are largely fantastic, as they tend to be really personal and have interesting characters in them, stories, and offer up a great connection to the world.
Heeft al filachilim.
What?
The game is played from an isometric viewpoint, controlling a party of up to 6 characters using a click-oriented interface. The only mode of control usable in the game is keyboard and mouse. The entire game can be played with just the mouse, as everything is easily accessible, although various hotkeys can be mapped to different functions for quicker access. A lot of the information here is conveyed through text, so expect to read a lot. Honestly, if you're not in the mood for heavy reading, it's best to pass this game up for later or forget it altogether. Some of the lines in the game are voice acted, but we will come back to that later. The game kicks off by letting you create your character. This involves selecting the race, sub-race, class, background, and skill set that your character will use throughout the game. It's actually pretty easy to get overwhelmed at this point, as you must make a lot of permanent decisions right out the gate without much understanding of what a lot of this stuff means. The game does try to explain by again throwing more text at you, but to me this was a negative, as I've seen it done better elsewhere. The choices perhaps should have been given to you one at a time throughout a tutorial process while various concepts got explained. The other disappointing thing in this area is the character portraits. These are pre-made and you must select one of them to be an avatar for your character. My problem with them is that their very nature makes them limiting, as you're sort of inclined to have a design that matches up with at least one of the portraits available. I know there are players that can simply ignore them, but I feel like that too defeats their purpose. The combat in the game is real-time party-based combat, based loosely on the Dungeons and Dragons set of rules. The team has taken liberties to make it their own, but you can still expect your standard healer, tank, and DPS roles to hold the value that they normally do. The characters can be left to duke it out on their own with just a click, but the player can select an available ability to execute at any time. Many of these are flashy and look pretty badass. My favorite are the spells that have their animations accompanied by echoing words of power. Travel in the game is done over a world map like in many other RPGs. Dialogue choices are selected from a numbered list, and statistics for items and weapons can be viewed in the inventory screen. Largely, the gameplay is executed pretty well, with most elements being meaningful. However, not all is well. I felt like the decision to remove the earning of XP through battles lessened my desire to keep watching the combat animations play over and over. It was always so disappointing to partake in a very long and testing battle, barely come out alive with your last party member and a well-timed ability, and then get nothing for it at all. I'm not saying I don't understand why they did this, I do. It makes using diplomatic stealth and other non-combat approaches just as viable as fighting, but I still don't like it. I felt like it was not a good idea. Also, Caed Noir, the player-held fortress received early on in the game, doesn't amount to much more than just buying a few things to decorate the place that add nothing to the overall game, quests, or even the story ending. This was the biggest letdown to me, as it had much potential to enhance the game. Think having a ruler recognize you right away due to established trade routes, or a criminal surrender before a fight due to having heard about the military might of your fortress. One of the activities the keep allows you to do is to imprison certain people in specific quests. However, the frustration involved in this mechanic is a lot, to put it lightly. Worse still, you don't have a lot of options to use this power. Overall, the stronghold devolves into a money sink that serves as pretty much just serves decorative purposes. Also, most of the events that happen at the keep are presented in text as well. Now, I know this game relies on the use your imagination approach to storytelling, but in some instances I felt that they might have pushed this a bit too far. The backgrounds in the game are pretty impressive. They appear to have been hand-drawn by some pretty awesome artists, taking advantage of the 2D nature of the game and using the images intelligently to create the illusion of depth and perspective on the map. Character designs are also alright, though not as impressive as the backgrounds. The portraits that represent the characters are pretty badass though. The disappointing areas in presentation to me were the armor and weapons. These just aren't as many, and there aren't many memorable designs in this department. The music to the game sounds like it came right out of an awesome adventure film. I'm not sure who was hired to do the music, but they deserve commendation. RPGs, more so than other games, need good music as you're normally moving back and forth in the same areas for hours. The music here does a great job of carrying the game, conveying the tense, dramatic, light and action-filled moments appropriately. There were times when I wanted a button to keep going on, just so I could keep listening to the awesome music. This happened on the game's menu as well. In my book, the music does not miss any steps and is easily my favorite part of the game. Voiceover is also okay, although there are times when the voiceover is pretty bad and sounds like someone reading a children's book. So let's look at some pros and cons for the game. So in summary, what the game does right for me is this: great side quests, characters, a deep and well realized world and lore, and great background art, fantastic music, multiple branching paths to the story, and of course the multiple endings and tons of choice that greatly increase replayability. Where the game falters is in the few areas. The loading screens in the game are atrocious. Companion pathfinding and AI is pretty bad and can lead to companions failing to walk around each other or even attack the enemy at all in a fight, which leads to some pretty cheap deaths. Also, there were a number of wasted opportunities with elements like the player fortress. Lastly would be the uneven voice acting from the main characters. In a lot of conversations, a few of the lines are voice acted and many of them are not. It's really jarring when one line of dialogue is spoken and the next isn't within the same conversation, more so by leading characters. In my opinion, either voice over the entire dialogue or don't. So my final thoughts on Pillars of Eternity are as follows. I think it's a fantastic game if you appreciate this type of game. The story is great and well written, the world is well developed and interesting to uncover, and the amount of choices and open-ended quests provides a lot of replayability. All of this backed up by an amazing score and great music. However, this type of game is not for everyone. A few of the choices in the game could alienate people who don't want to do extraneous reading or don't look back fondly on the days of long loading screens and very little hand-holding. For me, it was an awesome experience and a great success. The game achieves what it sets out to and then some. I think it would have benefited from a better polished job, perhaps similar to that given to Divinity Original Sin, but it's still a worthwhile experience that all fans of old school RPG should check out at some point.